start my prepared remarks, I did want to note that today would have been the birthday of Pastor Reverend Clemente Pinckney, the pastor of Emmanuel 9, Emmanuel Church, the Mother Emmanuel Church in Charleston, South Carolina, and a friend of mine. And so today being his birthday, I thought today would be a good opportunity to just share with the public that we miss him. We thank God for the family and the amazing role that they've played in South Carolina and around this country. And certainly as we tackle issues going forward, one thing we should keep in mind, bear in mind, is that civility and the grace, the compassion that we saw from Reverend Pinckney and the way that he tackled issues was such an important ingredient to keeping our communities together. And I hope as we discuss other challenging issues, we will have an opportunity to remember that civility, that notion that we are better together, the desire to build a bridge should be seen and displayed in the public forum as we discuss issues that sometimes pull at the very fabric of who we are as a nation. I rise today to offer a solution, and I will tell you, Mr. President, solutions are hard to find at times, but today I think I have found a solution that will help law enforcement officers and our citizens go home safe. That solution, Mr. President, are body-worn cameras to be worn by our law enforcement officers throughout this country. Just yesterday in Cincinnati, we were unfortunately given yet another example of how important body cameras are when they are worn by law enforcement officers. We, those of us who viewed the video, watched in disbelief as the officer shot the driver in the head. Difficult video to watch. Cincinnati officials said that in their investigation of the death of Samuel DuBose after being shot by the University of Cincinnati police officer, that body camera footage was invaluable. I want to say that one more time. That the police chief said without any question that the thing that allowed them to find conclusion to actually arrest the officer was the presence of a video that was undeniable. Unfortunately, we have seen too many of these incidents around the country. And I'll tell you that I struggle with this issue sometimes, Mr. President, because I have so many good friends who are officers, who serve the public every single day with honor and with dignity and amazing distinction. I'm talking about guys and young ladies who put on the uniform with pride. And I see that pride as I walk through the neighborhoods, as I talk to folks. So many of our officers serve this nation, serve their communities so well, keeping all of us safe. But sometimes, and too often, we've seen recently the videos that suggest we have to take a deeper look. Our citizens deserve for us to take that deeper look. And I think that without any question, a body-worn camera will protect the public, but it will also protect the officer. And that is why I'm here today. You know, Mr. President, I've said a couple times that if they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, then a video is worth 1,000 pictures. Let me say that one more time. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, then a video is worth 1,000 pictures. And I believe strongly that an important piece of the puzzle to help rebuild trust with our law enforcement officers and the communities that they serve are body-worn cameras. I say it's only one piece of that very important puzzle because I don't know that there is a single solution. I've looked for a panacea, but I don't know that there is a panacea. As a matter of fact, I think that there is not a panacea. But there are many critical steps we must take to tackle an array of issues confronting distressed communities in challenging circumstances, whether it's poverty, criminal justice reform, and, as we've seen on the video, instances of police brutality. With body cameras, we've seen some amazing studies. At least one study has confirmed that there is a 90% drop in complaints against officers. That is an astounding number. A 90% drop in complaints against officers, and the same study shows that there is a 60% drop in the use of force by officers. Now, this should be good news for everyone on every side of the issue. If there are sides of the issue, and I would suggest that there are not sides to this issue. There's not a Republican side, there's not a Democrat side, there's not a black side, there's not a white side. There's only a right side and a wrong side. And if we can find ourselves in a position where officers go home at night to a loving family, arms wide open, and citizens within the community go home at night to loving families and warm embraces, that perhaps the body-worn camera by officers will make this happen more every day someplace in our country. With those sorts of numbers, how can we not figure out the best way to get these devices into the hands of our police officers? And this doesn't even touch on the fact that when we end up with the video, a video, very unfortunate video, April the 4th, this year, my hometown, North Charleston, South Carolina, a video of Walter Scott being shot in the back. It helps bring clarity to an incredibly painful situation. And that is why, after months of meeting with dozens of police organizations, civil rights groups, privacy groups, and others, yesterday I introduced the Safer Officers, Safer Citizens Act of 2015. My goal is simple. It is to simply provide local and state law enforcement agencies with the resources to equip their officers with body-worn cameras. My legislation creates a dedicated grant program, fully paid for. Now, Mr. President, I know that there are those in the Senate like myself who like those words, fully paid for, sir, to help local law enforcement agencies purchase body cameras. I'm very opposed to any notion that we should federalize in any way, shape, or form local law enforcement. I believe local law enforcement should be in charge of local law enforcement, and state law enforcement should be in charge of state law enforcement. But if we can provide some tools, some resources to make sure that the situation I described earlier from a positive standpoint of an officer going home to their house, members of the community going home to their house after having an interaction, if there's a solution and or an opportunity to see that happen more often, we should go there. And my grant program would provide $100 million over the next 5 fiscal years, $100 million each year, 2016 through 2021, and it only requires a simple 25% match. And it certainly suggests that we will give preferences to departments who are applying for grants. They will need to have their own policies in place regarding data retention, privacy requirements, and other areas, because I believe that local and state departments, as I've said, can best determine their own procedures around the body cameras. As states and localities around the country implement body-worn camera programs, I believe this is the best way that we can help. Not take over, but provide that seed capital, the resources to start a brand new conversation all over the country about how many lives have been saved. How many folks get to go home? I'll tell you just two quick other points, Mr. President. I had the privilege of speaking at what I call my brother, who's the son of my mentor, John Moniz, who helped change my life when I was a kid on the wrong course for a long time. I had the privilege of speaking at Brian Moniz at his graduation from the police academy just 2 years ago, July the 18th, a couple of years ago. Amazing young man who wants to serve his community. His brother Philip is also a sheriff's deputy. And so when I think about the reality of the words that I'm speaking today, I don't think about it in legislative terms. I think about it in terms of real people in real places, like my brothers and others who want to serve the country. But I also think about it in real terms and real people who have suffered through those violent interactions. I'm thankful that co-sponsors like the Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina, Cory Booker from New Jersey, have joined me in making sure that we start the conversation that I hope to continue with Senator Grassley on this important topic. I would ask that we all remember the words of Mrs. Judy Scott, the mother of Walter Scott, who lost her son in North Charleston. I had the chance to speak to her on a number of occasions since the incident. You know, she's taught me a lot. She's taught me the power of forgiveness. Very quickly afterwards, she had no animus towards the officer. She was praying for the officer. She forgave the officer. But her request to me was a very simple request. It was simply that no more mothers would have to unnecessarily bury their sons like she did. That's a pretty simple request, Mr. President. I think my body camera legislation help us achieve that goal. I believe that this legislation will protect citizens, law enforcement officers. It will bridge the gap that seems to be growing in some communities around the country. It will provide resources without taking over local law enforcement. I believe that this is critically important. And the sooner we get there, the better off our nation will be. I thank you, Mr. President, and I note the absence of a quorum.